A former player caught in a buyout battle, a surprising firing going on in college football, and two powerhouse programs in a potential coordinator swap. Nope, it's not your mother's soap opera. It's just Big Ten football. Welcome into the Big Ten Huddle. I'm your host, JR, and in this episode of the Big Ten Huddle, it's going to be my goal to summarize what is going on between Penn State and USC right now. Right now, there is a saga developing between these two programs. What Penn State wants with their defensive coordinator, what USC wants with their defensive coordinator, the potential move that could come to Penn State, and then the buyout battle that is going on between it all. So, in this video, we're going to break down the timeline. We're going to talk about the key players, the key names, and people you need to know. Go through the evaluations of some of these guys with stats and, what do fans think of them? Are fans' thoughts on them justified? And why this is just so doggone entertaining as a college football fan. Listen, we love talking ball here at the Big Ten Huddle, but we also like to just talk about some of the pretty crazy and entertaining things that go on in college football. You cannot say that it does not have its entertaining twists and turns. And if you're all about those twists and turns, please do like and subscribe here to the Big Ten Huddle YouTube channel. We provide you with all different kinds of stories, intel, stuff like that, transfer portal, coaches swapping, coaching carousel. This is like one of the best times of the year for some of this stuff because you just don't know what's going to happen next. Like I said, we love to talk ball. Like, subscribe, do all that good stuff because we're going to be here with you all off season long talking football. We're going to have some more basketball content coming soon. I know I've been relaxed on that. I do apologize, but the basketball content is coming. Do not worry. And we are going to make sure we get you all the information of all the going ons in the Big Ten. Help us to continue to climb that subscriber count. Like, subscribe, and comment your thoughts down below with what you think Penn State should do, what you think USC should do, or what do you think these schools should do? Because they have a lot of decisions coming up and what's going on. So obviously the main player in this, if you've been following this saga and everything at all, is Deantin Lynn, the defensive coordinator for USC. Now, Matt Zenitz put out a tweet on Wednesday saying that Deantin Lynn was a target. I believe he just said a target. He may have said the top target for Penn State. Regardless, he is the top target for Penn State's defensive coordinator position. He's a former defensive back at Penn State, son of an NFL coach, Anthony Lynn. He coached in the NFL before coming to college, where he was 1 year at UCLA, the past 2 years at USC. And he did help fix a bit of the struggling defense at USC. They improved from 113th in points allowed per drive in 2023 to being 55th in 2024. Now, you might say, well, why is Penn State going after somebody who finished 55th in points per drive? That just doesn't sound very good. Well, he's in high demand because he's very highly regarded nationally for his schematics, his smarts, how well he can implement his defense to different players and things like that. Penn State just went through a really tough transition with Jim Knowles, and Jim Knowles' defense takes a few years to really kind of dig into and figure stuff out. And then in this climate of college football, you just can't have defenses be that complex and that complicated. You have to have a simplified scheme for your players that is also confusing to the other team so they can't figure it out super easily. And Deantin Lynn has seemed to kind of fit that median there of it's not too complex. The defense takes too much time to learn it, but it's not so easy that the offense is going to be able to figure it out during a game or in one of the first few games that they play. So obviously, alma mater from Penn State, that's huge. But the issue has been that Lynn has not been able to get to Penn State. If you recall last year, Lynn did want to go, or Lynn did kind of have, I shouldn't say he wanted to go. Lynn did interview and was highly regarded for the Penn State defensive coordinator position. Those things fell through, and one of the reasons why that fell through was because of James Franklin, Deantin Lynn. James Franklin just did not get along for whatever reason, and Deantin Lynn decided he wanted to stay at USC. Also, he's making really good money there. Yeah, I mean, it's not a bad job for him. We don't know the exact dollar amounts, and that's going to come into play here a little bit later on. But Deantin Lynn, with James Franklin gone, is believed to have more of an interest in going to Penn State than he did before. Now, if we continue to look at all of this and what's going on, Like I said, Lynn started to get some buzz for the job on Wednesday, but by Wednesday evening, when I put out my video of the Penn State defensive coordinator, we went through a number of guys. We went through John Haycock, Santucci, Tyler Santucci, Deantin Lynn. We went through a number of different options, and eventually came away with saying I think it should be Deantin Lynn, but for whatever reason, there's a hangup right now. And what we found out Thursday morning was the hangup was the buyout that Deantin Lynn has to leave USC. Apparently, that buyout is too large, and either Penn State has one of two things. Either Penn State doesn't want to pay the buyout, or Penn State cannot pay the buyout. With how much we have heard Penn State has financially here lately, I tend to believe that it's more of a they don't want to pay the buyout rather than that they cannot pay the buyout. But at this point, that's more speculation than anything else. Nobody truly knows what's going on with the buyout. They just know that the buyout right now is a hurdle between these two things happening. So the only way that Penn State would be able to get Deantin Lynn, or I shouldn't say the only way they'd be willing to get Deantin Lynn from USC to Penn State is if the buyout got lowered, and it looked like USC was not willing to do that. In addition to that, it looks like Lynn is getting suitors from other schools as well. And so USC is playing the gambling game of, well, if he's going to leave, then he's going to leave for one of these other ones, and they're going to have to pay us the full buyout. Why would we, lower it for him to be able to go to Penn State? Just makes sense. Deantin Lynn, his only option. We don't know what the other options are right now. A lot of this has been hush hush, kind of behind the scenes, but we do know that he has other options. So much so that Penn State and USC insiders were saying that Deantin Lynn is going to leave USC most likely. They just don't know where he's going to leave for, but they don't think it's going to be Penn State because Penn State is not willing to pay the buyout. So all of that, very interesting, and it left a lot of us to believe, okay, well, Penn State's not getting him. And so I felt pretty good about my video last night saying, okay, even though I didn't give the reasoning of the buyout, it still looks like he isn't going to get him. Well, about midday Thursday, we got some pretty crazy news out of Texas. Now, I know, we were just talking about USC, and you're saying, JR, this is a Big Ten huddle. This isn't the SEC huddle or anything. It's not. But I promise this all connects. So Texas fires Pete Kwiatkowski, I believe is how you pronounce it, and they hire Will Muschamp. And immediately USC's, their bells start going off. Ding, 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 ding. Look at this defensive coordinator, proven defensive coordinator at Texas. A lot of people think, oh, well, he must have had a really bad defense this year to get fired from there. Texas, they fired him after 5 seasons there. They hire Will Muschamp instead, and he's had an elite defense at Texas. He's had Jim Thorpe winners. He's had highly regarded players, really good stats. Texas's defense in 2024 had an 80.5% stop rate. They were 12th in defensive touchdowns, 27th in scoring defense. And in 2025, yes, they did dip a little bit more, but they also had a much tougher schedule in 2025 than they did in 2024. And they still only lost 3 games. And you could honestly put a lot of that more on the offense. Steve Sarkisian's baby, which I do not believe Steve Sarkisian is as good of a coach as people think, but whatever. I'd rather have Lincoln Riley all day long before I take Steve Sarkisian. I know that's kind of crazy to some people, but it's just the opinion I have. Anyway, my crazy opinions are not what this video is about. But Pete Kwiatkowski is obviously an elite defensive coordinator, somebody that has done a very good job at Texas, and USC seems to be interested in him now. But like I said, he just got fired, Thursday afternoon, so it's not like they've been deep in discussions here. But the thought process is, okay, USC was not willing to lower the buyout before because it looked like Deantin Lynn was going to leave for one of these other jobs. But if Deantin Lynn holds out and says, no, I'm not leaving, either fire me and pay the buyout or lower the buyout and I'll go to Penn State because that's where he wants to go. But USC's in a game of chicken right now, and they're saying, well, Penn State, just pay the buyout, right? It's getting late in the season. You need this stuff. Just pay the buyout. Yeah, but Penn State's saying, we're good. We got Anthony Poindexter calling the plays for the bowl game. We're not going to panic. We're not going to find ourselves in a bad situation here, or we're having to pay tons of money for the buyout. Again, we do not know how much the buyout is. I would estimate it's probably somewhere for a defensive coordinator between like $3 to $7 million, which to me sounds like something you just pay. But whatever, I'm not. I mean, Lincoln Riley's got a pretty crazy buyout as a head coach, so who knows what kind of buyout they put on Deantin Lynn there. And we just don't know because we don't have the financials of USC because they're a school that doesn't have to report those kinds of things. And so that makes all of this very confusing to know what's going on. So right now, we're at a standstill between USC not wanting to lower the buyout, Deantin Lynn not wanting to move on and saying, if you do, want me to be gone, then fire me and pay the buyout. And then you have Penn State saying, no, we think that you're going to fold. And so we're not even going to worry about the buyout. And we're just going to hold out and see what happens here. And like I said, when Pete Kwiatkowski comes into play, this changes everything because now USC wants to grab Kwiatkowski, and Kwiatkowski would most likely, be very willing to go to USC because USC pays their coaches very well. It would obviously have a very good situation there with the pay and what Deantin Lynn has built up there with some of the players. But Kwiatkowski can't exactly accept the job if Deantin Lynn is still there. So pretty much what needs to happen right now is there needs to be some high-level discussions between USC and Pete Kwiatkowski. What most likely needs to occur is there needs to be an agreement between Pete and USC to say, hey, we will hire you once Deantin Lynn goes and finds a job elsewhere. And I think if they get that type of assurance from Pete, that is when they will lower the buyout because it does not seem like Penn State is going to budge, and it does not seem like Deantin Lynn is going to leave because Deantin Lynn knows that USC, not that they want to get rid of him, but they would like to move on from Deantin Lynn. That's what it seems like. I think they're at the point where they're like, okay, well, we could move on from you, but we also could not move on from you. It's not like you're doing the worst job in the world. It's not like you're Alex Grinch or anybody like that, right? So it's just all so convoluted. So to summarize it all, right now we are in a situation where Penn State does not want to pay the buyout. Deantin Lynn does not want to leave for another job where other schools are most likely willing to pay the buyout. And then USC does not want to lower the buyout, but USC may be forced into lowering the buyout so that way they can get Deantin Lynn off the staff and hire Pete Kwiatkowski. So, or whatever other defensive coordinator they might want, but Pete Kwiatkowski is the big name. So, oh boy. I hope I explained that well. If I did not, it's confusing. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. If you have any questions or anything like that, put that in there. I do go through and try to check all the comments and everything there. As long as you're not like rude or anything, then I typically answer your questions as long as I see it. If you comment like 5 days later, I'm most likely not going to see your question. I apologize. But like I said, we really don't have a timeline on what's going to happen here. This could, the USC could figure something out with Kwiatkowski, and Deantin Lynn could be gone next week, or USC could say, you know what, we're done playing this game. We want to have this position open so that way we can, start full negotiations with Kwiatkowski. Let's go ahead and just lower the buyout and let Penn State get him tomorrow on Friday. So it's all a very interesting situation. We'll see what happens here. Drop the comment, drop a like. Let me know what you think is going to happen. Let me know if you have opinions on what you think should happen. Should Penn State go with a different defensive coordinator? Should USC hold on to Deantin Lynn and say forget it to Pete Kwiatkowski? I would love to know you guys' thoughts, and I would like some recognition. I've been saying the Pete Kwiatkowski name, I believe, correctly the entire time. I struggled with it a little bit there, but you guys know how terrible I am with names, so if I can get this name right, maybe it's a good omen for USC to get Kwiatkowski. We'll see what happens here. Thank you so much for listening. Have a good one. We'll see you next time.